Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 was declared as a pandemic on 30th of March 2020 by the WHO. And since then, there have been a colossal loss of lives, the mortality being about 2 crores, the morbidity being about 2 crores, the mortality is about 2.5 lakhs in India. The first question which comes to my mind and on the lips of each one of us, why the second wave has been so furious and deadly? How is it different from the first wave? And another one, when do we expect a third wave and its impact on children? Dr. Gupta, would you please
Yeah.
kindly elaborate on these issues
Um,
as you are managing COVID patients in the most epic institution of the country?
um, sir, thank you, sir, and thanks for the nice introduction, Sethi, sir. And the best award is has given is by you, and you are, I'm at the same platform with you, so that's the biggest award for me. Now, regarding the patient and when this epidemic started around say February end and March starting, we started thinking about that this time it's a milder infection even in adult, and we all had aura, or you can say we're all enthusiastic because we were vaccinated and we thought that there is some invisible kavach with us and we won't get infection. That was the thought process in the mid of February. Now something happened very opposite to what we thought. The infection started mounting in the south, then it came to Mumbai, then it came to this one, Nagpur, then it came to Punjab, and then it entered Delhi. I would say it was not a storm, it was a super storm. And the major difference was the infectivity. Previously, there used to be two members out of each household used to get infected. Now we found that all of six were without doubt, means it was almost 100% infectivity in an house. So in an index case, you get after an index case, each and every person got infection. One. Presently, it's very difficult to find a COVID negative home. So you can imagine the infectivity is more than 50 to 75% as compared to the last year. So one is clinical part. Second is what people means what the scientist has said about the mutation. So clinically, what I saw, I'll try to elaborate. What I found that not only infectivity, but the severity was much more as compared to the last year. The severity was surprisingly much more in a patient with diabetes, but also without comorbidity, especially in a 21-year-old young, 25-year, 35-year, 45-year. So age group between say 21 to 40, 50-year, the severity was much more as compared to fully vaccinated people, say around 50-year plus. Now, regarding severity, what I found that the incubation period shortened. People were exposed, and within 36 hours, they acquired infection, they acquired symptom, and the onset of the pneumonia was much shorter. In previous wave, it was around 8 to 10 days, and this time it was 5 to 7 days. So not only infectivity was high, is high presently, but also severity was high, and it jumped to the young people. One morbidity, I am working in inpatient, in means we have got around 45 patients presently. Most of them who were diabetics are having actually very prolonged ailment to up to 1 month, 1.5 month. This is surprising as compared to the last year. I had around experience of 800 OPD patient. OPD means online patients, and out of them were 500 moderate cases where they were either oxygen requirement or I need to give them steroid, good amount of steroid. Now in the ward, say except past 1 week when beds are easily available, I found that all those patients who didn't got bad for who were hypoxic for 36 hours or 48 hours and didn't received steroids, they had prolonged course of say month or 1.5 month, and still they are not recovering, and they have landed in chronic lung disease. Previously in last year, around 70-year old, 80-year-old, but this time 35, 40, 45-year-old, all having chronic lung disease as compared to last year. So in nutshell, it is probably the mutation. Now we know that 617 A, B, C, or 123, these are the mutations which has leading to this, you can say, an Indian strain, which was global interest. Now it is a global concern as per the WHO. Global concern is a severe one, means it has got an impact on the society. Interest is just an infectivity that is very high rather than the severity. So it is now of a concern, global concern. This strain is of a global concern, which produced controversy between the Singapore and India. This strain and somehow has evaded immunity also. So this was in a third part which I found. Means I am in IAP North Delhi. There is a group of around say 80 pediatricians, and what I am finding, there's this research, you can say not research, but we are trying to find out how many people are totally vaccinated and how many people got infection this time. So you will be surprised to see that more than 50% of the people, I'm talking about doctors, pediatrician in that group, got infection this time after vaccination. So you can imagine the breakthrough infection. Leave aside the severity. So somehow the Covishield and Covaxin has failed in its, in its main utility. That is, if somebody gets infection to the tune of more than 50%, you can say that, okay, severe infections were spared, but still, if somebody is getting out of 150 people are getting infection after, say, any vaccination, means we cannot stop the chain. What we need presently is a good and robust vaccine which can tackle this 617 strain, and that is a need of an hour if we want to save our people from the third wave.
Very nicely analyzed, Dr. Gupta. So the strain that is working nowadays is B1617. Now, any
Yeah,
other strain,
be
third region strain, which is coming up, which might harm the children in the next phase?
Sir, I think that despite this has affected young, and we are finding a lot of adolescents getting oxygen requirement, getting into pneumonia. But still, I feel that it is not going to be that severe as it is in the adults, as compared to even if we talk about third wave. What has happened? Politics and policies this time were paralyzed. So all politicians and policy makers were taken, were caught on the back foot. Now they want to divert our attention, and that's why they are talking about third wave. They couldn't handle the second wave, and it is all gimmick. But it's a good gimmick. At least now they should focus on their own setup, and they should revamp the health, which never been taken as a precedence over past 70 years. So even if it may turn out to be a wrong gimmick, but it will be good gimmick for the healthcare worker to have a good setup. And my feeling is that all government health setup now, unless we some of the private people don't approve them, we should not believe the politician. It should be other way, not politician or IAS officer should approve the private setups or their own setup to be utilized for third wave. But it is probably because healthcare is much more developed in private setup. So health private setup should approve, okay, now this government hospital is ready. Otherwise, what is happening? The people, the workers, or the people who approve these centers are actually the workers of the same politician. So they approve the compromise work. And when there is some major problem, there is nobody to look after we people. This time we had a very bad experience that our government hospital were all already in shambles for 70 years, and they didn't help. In fact, they turned the private hospital into the government hospital. So what I want, say, if next wave is due to come, is my personal thinking, my personal opinion, that a merger of government and private doctors who is independent of of anybody should approve our hospitals whether they are ready for third wave or not. Otherwise, once they are exposed, then we come to know that okay, it's all eyewash, and there is actually there is no preparation done by government. That is happening. That has happened, and this time it was a very shameful thing. What we saw, whether it's a Delhi, whether it's any part of India.
You are so candid in your opinion, and I hope that what we have conjectured and what the experts have conjectured, that there's going to be a third wave, is a myth, and it doesn't occur. So probably it is just because, as you said, is that it makes us professions prepare for the third wave, whether it comes or not. So let us be prepared for that. So that may be one of the reasons why we are making a hue and cry about the third wave coming up very soon. So the second question that I think I would like to ask you is, could you please enlighten the delegates why the second wave has taken the lives of young adults? I have seen my students going at the age of 40, those who have done MD under me, and shocked to hear this thing. Every day they found that people were dying. Now, what was the cause of this particular, because the first wave started with the elderly. The second wave has suddenly taken us aback by attacking the young adults, and that too, one day they are okay, and the second day we find that they are just gone. And they
Yes.
don't give the chance to the parents or the family to react to that. So what is your take on that, sir?
Sir, 20% of the patients, if I analyze my data and the calls I got and the type of patient I saw in inpatient, who are very sick, 10 to 15, 20%, didn't got time to react. One. Second means within 2-3 days of first symptom, they'll end up in respiratory failure. Normally, what happens, first day there's a cold cough, then fever comes, and you know that first 5-7 days, nothing happens in form of pneumonia. It is around seventh day or eighth day, they'll end up in pneumonia. That and last year it was around 10th day. So this time we knew that it has shrunken, but those 15% who first onset of symptom, and within 3 days they'll end up in severe pneumonia, it's very difficult to catch them early because 3 days is hardly any time. And later on, I tried to analyze all these patients had continuous fever for 3 days for almost more than 100 to 103. So this was a neglected, you can say, sign and symptom. A continuous fever more than 100 to 101, not responding to paracetamol, with chills and rigor. Probably these are the subset of patients who land up in pneumonia. And it took us almost 10-15 days to recognize this is a major sign. But at that time, no beds were available and all beds were full. And so these patients, of course, got neglected. And many of the deaths, what we saw is because of these type of subset of patients. Though later on studies showed us, okay, probably this was something like a 440 strain from Andhra strain, and still we don't know what type of strain these patients had. But unfortunately, these were young guys, these were some young professionals, young IT people, which everybody has lost in their families. Now, second, we come to the 80% of the people where probably, I won't say it was a negligence, but we didn't had good guidelines to start with. What we had in our mind that whenever oxygen drops less than 94%, this is the time we should give steroid. But probably we forgot that any fever, any fever wherever there is drop in saturation is probably the late sign. From our MBBS, from our MD time, a patient starts desaturating much later than he acquires pneumonia. Fine. we have got lot of compensatory mechanisms for oxygenation. So the patients who didn't desaturated, didn't present it to doctors, or even if presented to the doctors, they didn't prescribe steroids. There was other extreme. Many of the doctors started prescribing steroid on the first day one itself. So this late, you can say, prescribing steroid or too early policy of prescribing steroid actually harmed the patient. So what I would say, almost 90% of the prescription, what I found on day one, they were started on ivermectin and vitamin C, vitamin D, means zinc. On seventh day, when fever was continuing, there was no desaturation. The patient was shifted to ivermectin. At this time, actually, they needed steroid, and there was very clear-cut indication when I interviewed them that this time either they were breathless, they were not able to speak properly, or their oxygen saturation became 95, which was start of 19. At the start, it was 99. So probably recognition of respiratory involvement, lung involvement was inappropriate, and that's why institution of steroid was delayed, and that's why 80%, I would say that means out of 100, 15 to 20% were difficult to recognize. They had very severe or stormy onset of pneumonia. I'm talking about 80 of these patients. In 80 of these patients, say, I would say around 60 patients, they were late institution of steroids. In some of the patients, like 20-30% patients, there was delay in hospitalization. They were breathless, they were given less doses of steroid, they were breathless, they required oxygen also, they didn't got that oxygen support. So these were the three major reasons in the it means what I could analyze is the major reason that we lost many of the young lives. And the beauty of the young people are, even if their oxygenation becomes a 91, 92, if you start adequate treatment, especially steroid at a given time, they recover completely in 90% of the situation as compared to a diabetic who is 50-year-old plus. That is the difference between last epidemic and this epidemic. In young people, the response is very good if patient doesn't become hypoxic to the saturation less than 90%. But if we catch them between 90 to 95, if we institute steroid early, if we give early, if there is required blood thinners, then the outcome is much better. I would say out of 500 moderate cases, 150 were on oxygen, and just I lost one patient out of them, and fortunately all survived because of their sheer luck and the response to the treatment and the response to the pneumonia, and with adequate dose of steroid, they recovered very quickly as compared to patient which I'm viewing in indoor. They are there for almost 1.5 months when we didn't had major resources like oxygen, we didn't had bed. These patients were late in coming to hospital. These patients got treatment late, and they are suffering till date.
So beautifully explained. So from what your talk I could understand is that one was complacency on the part of the patient, one was a happy hypoxia, third was delay in the start of steroids. Now, what I want to know is that is it because of the ARDS, or sudden death may also occur as a result of some heart problem? Because a couple of people, died. Like I don't know what happened to Rohit Sardana.
Yeah.
He was okay one day, and the second day we found the patient was dead. So what really happened? Is it the heart also to be involved? So the lung only involved, or the delay in the treatment of the patient?
Sir, yeah. I come to that. One another difference between the last epidemic and this epidemic, this time young people got affected. As per the science, a 50-year-old plus will start having severe headache or some constitutional symptom if saturation becomes less than 90. but a young person can tolerate saturation up to 80% without any systemic signs. So I've got many recordings, and I don't think that this is the right forum that I should show the recording, but I recorded it for myself. Patient of 60 saturation, 67 saturation, sitting at home. डॉक्टर साहब बाकी सब ठीक है, वो कल से फीवर भी आना बंद हो गया, लेकिन सेचुरेशन ना 67 है, वो लेटते हैं ना तो 73 हो जाती है. Means I used to take a deep breath, and how to respond to this patient when there is no resources available like beds and all that. So this was a new thing for me. The severe happy hypoxemia. Happy hypoxemia, we all know that. We call it medically silent hypoxemia. So we all have witnessed silent hypoxemia. This is severe silent hypoxemia. This I witnessed this time, and probably it is because of the youth and young people. And fortunate part is that patient having saturation of say 67, 70, they also recovered when they were given adequate steroid and oxygen BiPAP, CPAP, and only few of were fortunate. No, they were unexplained death. I didn't witness any unexplained death, but last time also we found that it was a pulmonary thrombosis. What we witnessed, that patient recovered. You started the steroid on 10th day. On 15th day, you found that, okay, now patient is recovering. His saturations are now 91, 92. Initially, it was 82, 83. Suddenly, they deteriorate. And their D-dimer used to climb to more than 2000. If somewhere facilities were there, they were able to demonstrate there's a pulmonary thrombosis. But this is just one reason that led to sudden deterioration. Even after recovery, many patients who recovered, their saturation become 94 and they are at home. They stop taking blood thinners, and this virus is very notorious, and sudden pulmonary thrombosis can lead to problem. Today, I witnessed a patient, a husband of a nurse, 39-year-old, who presented to us around in absolutely normal state. Means he got admitted because his kid got admitted, the whole family, and he was having fever on 8th day also. We started on steroid. Within 24 hours, his oxygen, he was on room air. Within 24 hours, his oxygen requirement was 15 liters. So we have to increase the steroid. Day before yesterday, he got settled. There was no breathlessness. His oxygen requirement dipped to 10. And yesterday I found he became again tachypneic. And today I found that not only he became tachypneic, he complained of lot of chest pain despite of blood thinners. And we found that lead to ECG, there was almost inversion. So it looks like patient had myocardial infarction. So cardiac events has been undermined because they are not very common, and especially the media person when get these type of cardiac events, they get publicized also, but they are happening. And only one lesson we have learned, that despite of every normalization, especially who those patients who required oxygen or saturation less than 94, they should be given blood thinners, we call it anticoagulant, for at least 4 to 6 weeks, even after recovery. We should not rely on aspirin as an anticoagulant.
So nicely elaborated by you. I hope the young adults are listening to what you said, and they can save their lives by listening to what you've said and to really emulate what you've said. Another question, Dr. Gupta, which I have in mind, is always have that in mind, because in the second phase, as well as probably the third phase, if it's so going to occur, the children are going to be affected. What I really want to know is, there has been statistics that children below 10 years are less involved than children between 10 to 20 years, which are more involved. So do you have any statistics in Gangaram? I mean, if there are a number of children, then at least why I want to know this is because from 2 points of view. One is from the parents' point of view, that they know that a particular group of children are more vulnerable, so they have got to look for those children more than the other one. Second is, whenever the vaccination is going to come to the fore, maybe next year, at least we have a category of children to be vaccinated earlier on, as we've done in elderly, and then we've done in 18 to 45, and then the children. So any statistics you have regarding, or any this instances you've heard from, any particular guidelines that you've seen? I'd like to know that.
So first of all, we don't have that amount of number which can turn into statistics. What I can say that this time 10 year to 18 years had lot of morbidity and many of the patients behave like an adult. So adolescent pathology is shifting towards adult. Many of these patients do develop pneumonia and they require typical steroid. But in say if one patient, 100 patient requires steroid in adult, only one adolescent land up in requiring steroid. That is very true. Second, whenever there is multi-organ inflammatory syndrome, MIAC is one disease which everybody is scared that their patient may not land up in MIAC. So it is 1 in 1,000, that is the statistic, and the number of patients as compared to last year, if 100 adult got in problem last year, we have got only say 20 odd pediatric patient who land up in problem. So problem means just high grade fever in most of the time, and still pneumonia was just 2% out of all pediatric patients who got infection. So what we can say, the severity is still 20 times less as compared to adult. One, even if we assume that third wave is going to hit the pediatric population, we should be ready to have intensive care setup for adolescents, for a home care or simple nursing home care, a simple peripheral hospital where pediatric nurses are there to take care of small babies. That should be enough rather than having investing in intensive care primarily for pediatric intensive care. What we can have, we should revamp all government and private setup to take care of adult as well as pediatric whosoever get severe disease. Very difficult, you can imagine, despite of the number of patients were increasing since the mid of January or end of January, our scientists couldn't predict all what has happened. Can you imagine their prediction, which is for next after 6 months, is going to be correct? Who is going to believe them? But having said that, even if we say share aya, that is going to be a false alarm. But we should revamp our whole health system resources. We should revamp to take care of adult as well as pediatric. In a given city, there should be one intensive care that can take care of pediatric patients also. That should be sufficient, one or two intensive care setups. But most of the patients probably may escape intensive care, may require just oxygen or at the most high flow oxygen. For invasive ventilation, what we can do in a given city, we can divide, okay, these are 50 nursing homes, 30 nursing homes or 35 nursing homes are okay, which can provide simple oxygen or at the most one BiPAP. These are 5 nursing homes where we can provide pediatric nurses, pediatric BiPAP, pediatric HFNC, and there are 2 nursing homes where invasive ventilation systems are there for hemodynamic unstable. So this way we should revamp our whole system. And what my appeal to my all friends, pediatric friends, is once start learning about COVIDology. This is a simplistic disease on earth which a person can treat. Why? There were around 5 medicine last year, and this time we had only 2 medicines, which are actually essential medicines to treat. Now we all know that remdesivir not a major role. Now we know that there are new medicines which are coming. Probably they may turn out to be eyewash. They are not going to be a big game changer. Only one game changer is going to be there, that is adequate dose of steroid at particular adequate means in a particular adequate window, we can say, and blood thinner. These are going to change the course of the disease. So if we learn about the use of steroid in COVID, I think we can treat these patients as compared to means comparable to any adult physician. And we all pediatricians are actually trained to treat infectious disease much better than adult physicians. Their medicine is more towards chronic disease like cardiology, like hypertension, diabetes, or chronic lung disease, COPD, rather than acute infection. We treat more with the measles and many of the infectious disease like influenza than the adult are partners. So after interacting with them for 1.5 years, we are on same page, and we independently handle our indoor patients even with comorbidities. So once you learn about little bit comorbidity, that is very easy to understand. Most of us are suffering from diabetes and hypertension. We know what are the different brands which are available. There is no problem regarding the doses. So in nutshell, what I would say, we should learn little bit about covidology. That is more than sufficient to treat outdoor patient as well as indoor patient. One, in given times in next 6 months, whenever these type of epidemics are going to happen, it is not going to happen that only pediatric COVID wave is going to happen. It is going to strike adult as well as pediatric. We need to take care of these patients in our hospitals, in our nursing home, where parents will be admitted with COVID as well as pediatric patient, their child may be suffering from severe COVID. So we need to take care of adult patients also, pediatric patient. We are pediatricians. We are well off about pediatric patient. But in totality, the concept of family care has to be revived. The concept of family medicine has to be revived. We cannot compartmentalize ourselves to just a pediatric or neonatology. We have to come out from that shell, and we should need to treat all these. Next 6 months, we should develop our acumen and we should move forward.
Beautifully scripted. What I can say at the moment is that the government has already listened to what you have already said, because they're now catering to the pediatric wards, thinking of preparation for the third phase. And even in Jhansi Medical College, they're opening up a 100-bedded pediatric hospital even before anything has happened. So I think your messages are going very clear in the hierarchy of things, so that things are going to be easing out in the next phase. The next question which I think we have to ask is, there's recent literature states that there's consistent evidence of SARS-CoV-2 being also airborne, contact and then droplet and all that. But airborne is considered to be greater. Now with the smaller particles, do we, and going a far distance, do we have to change our SMS policy from level 1 to level 2? The masking is different, the distance is different, or not? Please.
Exactly. Sir, you have actually answered my question, means you have actually partially answered it. See, it is very clear. Last year also, I was shouting for months that it's an airborne. We convey this type of infection is an opportunistic airborne. This is the actual term used by WHO. So, what is airborne? Airborne means the size is a aerosol size, less than 5 micron. It spreads beyond 2 meter, maybe 5 meter, 10 meter, depends on the ventilation. It's good ventilation, it will get cleared within 20 to 30 seconds. But say poor ventilation, if I am coughing for 10 minutes, I'll be filling this room completely with the infectious particle beyond 10 meters also. So whosoever is going to come in contact with can acquire. So what is important as a pediatrician, if you're sitting it on your OPD, your type of mask, type of, you can say, preventive measure is going to change. So the type of mask, it means no more there is utility of single layered fancy looking mask, but probably only N95 or only N99. The utilization, even you can say an attendant who is in the premises of the patient has to don N95. It is not possible that a guard is wearing just a simple cloth mask and you are wearing N95. So everybody has to be on the same page. One. Second, we should lower our guard regarding touch and hand sanitization. So hand sanitization should be sufficient rather than too much PPE, focus on the too much PPE. So what we normally focused on too many things like a proper hazmat suit or proper gown in the OPD also, but we forget about the mask because that is very uncomfortable to don for long time. I also become little bit complacent, so I got imported some copper mask. They were very soft and but when I found that okay, it is very infectious, so I switched over to comfortable N95 mask. So in nutshell, we need two things. One is good mask. Second is good ventilation in our OPDs. So wherever we are working, this is applicable to in home also. So in now, if you just interview the people, I got one habit that whomsoever I deal as a patient, I usually acquire कि तुम्हें कहाँ से मिला ये, कैसे मिला ये, and 90% of the patient this time are not, they are not able to trace the source of the infection. So it is a massive community spread, airborne spread that has happened, and this is going to happen much more in much more severity in next wave because the virus is constantly mutating. No, for that, I knew that I have to take COVID round, and this time it is affecting all sort of people. So what I switch over to is this type of mask. Those people mean it's very difficult to don mask. Whenever I don a mask after 4 hours, either I used to get nasal obstruction or used to get breathlessness. It's very easy to preach somebody, but if you want to, it's very difficult to don myself. So then I found, then I searched this that okay, this is a positive pressure a suit which improves your ventilation, which improves your oxygenation, and you can don it. You can work within this suit for almost 6 to 8 hours without having hypoxemia. So I mean to say, we need to be very strict for the mask and ventilation rather than mopping the chairs, mopping the floor three times or 10 times a day. That probably is a useless exercise, and people got diverted to mopping everything and to take care of all these vegetables and keeping them in ultraviolet rays, but forget to wear mask. That is a major mistake happened this time with a pseudo coverage of you can say vaccination. So all got messed, and the mess what we are viewing is actually mess of all the combination of lowering the guard, that is only mask and ventilation.
Masking is the most important thing. That's very important.
That is of N95 mask.
N95, yeah. Okay. We have had a lot of dull patients in the first wave as well as in the second wave. Now the question arises that are the symptomatology of a child who's suffering from COVID differs from that of an adult, and any other new symptomatology that has come up in children which has to be looked forward because the pediatricians are going to see a lot of cases, and they should be knowledgeable enough to know what are the other manifestations rather than just the respiratory infections. So can you just elaborate or any other and investigate any other manifestations that you probably may have encountered in your vast wards?
In pediatric patient, what I found that if fever is not settling, especially fever, high grade fever more than 100 to 103 beyond 4 to 5 days, with or without rash on the body, rash on the face, these are the red herring signs one should watch for. Otherwise, I found lot of loose motions, but still they were not life threatening. Recently, I saw around 4-year-old child with hypoxemia, 94 saturation is what is it was like a happy hypoxemia. Other than these, I didn't find any major, you can say, major problem in pediatric age group as compared to adult. Most of the adolescents do develop pneumonia. A CT score maximally I found was around 22 out of 24, but in most of the patient it was around 12 to 14. A lot of people got CT scan, but in most of the patient, actually none of the pediatric patient actually required CT scan who were being managed on the OPD basis. So in nutshell, pediatric disease still is, was not very severe.
Evaluate.
One, yeah, and even somehow 2 to 6 year age group didn't got major severe problem regarding COVID. Most of them were adolescent or around 8 to 12-year old. Many of the patients just developed prolonged fever for say 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Those were most difficult to treat. Once patient develop little bit pneumonia, it's the easiest to treat. You start steroid. We know that nothing works except the steroid. In pediatric age group, and most of time you don't give blood thinner, even if D-dimer is heavy. So in nutshell, pediatric age group still it's easy to manage as compared to the adult, but in some of the adolescent it was difficult to predict, especially who land up in severe ARDS. Within no time, they didn't give us time, and they land up in ARDS within 36-48 hours after say fever. So those were very difficult to predict, but those are very very minuscule number.
Some people have predicted that there are about 3% chance of having cutaneous lesions in the form of vesicular maculopapular rashes and conjunctivitis and vesicular
Sir, I
rashes.
didn't find. This time I didn't find. Last year I found that there were maculopapular rash, cheilibionts, and some bruises, some you can say infarct type lesion on the skin. But this time it was not a major finding. Again, means I had more adult patient than pediatric. Say, if I had 10 adult, only one pediatric or two pediatric, it is something like in a family 2, 3 pediatric. Main, it was fever, high grade fever that irritated everybody.
One more question about pediatrics before we go to the adults is that children are often about having about 6 to 8 infections, 6 to 7 infections per year. Now it is difficult for the parents to know whether the viral infection is because of influenza or it's because of COVID. So any particular clue that we can give to the parents that okay, or it is just that the child may be in contact. That will be the only thing to really say that the child may be having a COVID infection rather than influenza infection.
So this is going to happen. This is going to create confusion in coming months. Presently, in last month, only there was a one king, that was COVID. So in subsequent month, when influenza will pitch in, when dengue will pitch in, when other infection will pitch in, it is going to create problem. Now, what I have found another thing in pediatric age group, even if the CRP was high, say if you investigate on day 5, day 6, CRP was much higher as compared to an adult patient. And I'm talking about non-complicated patient. And in pediatric patient also, if you neglect those CRP, say up to 50, nothing happened to these patients. So as compared to adult, our pediatric patient mounted CRP much more than a non-complicated adult. In adult, it was very clear that if CRP is mounting, 90% chance that this patient is going to land up in problem. But this was not a predictable index as compared to adult. But one should think of MIS, especially with if fever is persisting beyond 5 days, high grade fever, not less than 100. I'm talking about 100 to 103. Or if rash is appearing on the abdomen or the face, or there's a suffusion of the eyes, or if patient is not looking well at all. These are the pediatric patients where we could diagnose MISC, where this patient actually required steroids. And they were some of the patients who actually didn't fit into total MISC, but an incomplete or milder form of MISC who got settled by just oral steroids.
Last wave and even in the beginning of this wave, right and left, all of us, even the doctors, are prescribing uh, to their parents or to their well-known people about ivermectin and so many other drugs. So, what is your take on a prophylactic intake of ivermectin, sir?
Sir, we know that means all we want means whenever we get a positive report of family, everybody get desperate. If somehow I'm myself I'm able to save my near and dear and myself to the severe disease, so that scare makes you susceptible to eat all sort of things, including Baba's Coronil to ivermectin. Fine, and that is a that scare makes you vulnerable to acquire all sort of habits and all sort of activities, and means we start increasing our immunity by consuming zinc and vitamin D, and you can say all sort of asan we start doing that, somehow if I'm able to save myself from the pneumonia.
Okay.
So that is a scare that has led to all sort of drugs to evolve and to be given during as a prophylactic or as a treating, you can say, arm and ammunition. No, I won't say that don't give ivermectin. I won't say that don't use, you can say, vitamin C, zinc. What I want to say, whenever you're using these drugs, one thing is very clear: these drugs doesn't change the outcome. Clarify with your patients that I am giving you ivermectin because it's a state protocol. We give everybody, we give these drugs to everybody. But just take care of the pneumonia. These are the three signs and symptoms when you need to come back to me. One is persistence of fever after 5 to 7 days. If you're feeling hypoxic, if you're feeling breathless. Third, if your oxygen saturation is, if presently it is 99, if it drops not 94 but around 96 and 95, you need to come back to me. I am writing a steroid. You purchase after 3 5 days. If you symptom don't consume it unless you are really hypoxic. So you need to spend 5 10 minutes, at least 15 minutes with each and every patient, and convey them whatsoever I have written. Because in Indian patient, they feel very bad if doctor doesn't write any medicine, whether it's free of cost or whether they are paying. As a doctor, you feel that I haven't written anything. So means you, in general, you feel incompleteness as a doctor also. So this is an honesty. Let's accept this as with the honesty. So my only take home is that we all know that ivermectin, doxy, azithromycin, all are super placebos. They don't have any role to play at all. Fine. Now, what we need to do, even if you prescribe them, just convey them. Out of all, I can say ivermectin may be having some evidence, gray or white, we don't know. But at least don't prescribe doxycycline and azithromycin. 80% of the patients after 7 days of getting doxycycline and azithromycin develop so severe gastritis when we need to prescribe them steroid on 7th day. They didn't had good gut to consume it, to tolerate it. That is a general thinking, general, you can say, observation I found in most of the patients. So for third wave, what I would like to say, hopefully that doesn't come. Even if that come, these drug doesn't carry any meaning. Even if you prescribe, especially ivermectin, convey them, its role is doubtful, but focus on monitoring of development of pneumonia. That is most important issue.
One thing is that what we have seen is that the government is supplying these kits with a couple of capsules in it to the villagers. Now, what is that? Is it not ivermectin and azithromycin? What is that? I don't know.
Sir, I don't know, but this is going to be another blunder. What happens? Government doesn't want that somebody should die and should.
जगह से कि हमको किट मिला है क्या किट मिला है पता नहीं हमें
Sir, government doesn't want that if somebody should dies and they should curse the government. So they are saving themselves rather than they want to save the patient. Fine. So they cannot provide oxygen. They cannot provide adequate medical facility. So they are providing some sort of churan, you can say, to the villagers. So they should start having feel of a placebo, and that is the probably the main aim of them, because 99% of the villager, I'm talking about villager who is not diabetic, who is have not comorbidity, who is pretty young and doesn't have obesity, is probably amount of infection load may be less. So 99% is going to recover by its own. Whether you give some medicine or you don't give medicine, but they will have feeling, okay, Netaji has done something for them.
Making a fool of the people.
Sir, yes.
Dr. Shalem, are we running short of time? I don't know.
Sir, half an hour.
Sir, there are a lot of questions in the chat box. Sir, with your kind permission, may I proceed to ask some of them, and some of them may be taken later?
हाँ, Dr. Shalem, शुरू करो आप.
हाँ, actually I'm seeing there is a flurry of questions, and the most of them actually the people want to know, as you have rightly pointed out, that the steroids is the cornerstone and the magic drug in this management of COVID. Everybody wants to know what is the right window. You mentioned about the right window. What is the timing of the steroid? When should it be introduced? What is its correlation with the fever? What is its correlation with the level of oxygen? What should be the dosage, and how should be used? Everybody,
Okay.
there are multiple questions. Everybody wants to know. Yes, sir.
So give me 2-3 minutes. See,
yes,
day one patient comes to me. So I tell them, okay, look for the fever and the type of fever and the type of symptom. So the type of fever, 103 plus, even on day 3, I take it is very significant. Now, most of the patient, which is applicable to 99 out of 100, day 5 to day 7, if patient is having 101 plus fever on day 5, 99.99 plus fever day 7, these are significant, you can say, landmarks where I start think of steroids and evaluation. I am not talking about hypoxic patient. Leave aside saturation less than 95. That is easiest thing to manage. I am talking about a patient who is non-hypoxic. Those are the most difficult patient to find the window. A patient who is taking like paracetamol or mefenamic acid, not round the clock you should advocate unless except first 3 days. After that, it should be on SOS basis, so that you should come to know, okay, this man is having fever. Try to avoid medications like colchicine, like medicine like the naproxen, because you are suppressing the inflammation, you are suppressing the fever, and fever is an important arm and ammunition after 3rd day. So don't give them 8 hourly or 6 hourly, especially naproxen or your colchicine type of drug. These are all experimental. Give them only paracetamol. If 5th day, if somebody is having fever of 100 plus, like 101, 102, despite of medication, like you take an paracetamol, डॉक्टर साहब फीवर मेरा 100 गया और फिर से वापस आ गया 101 पे. Second, even low grade fever 7th and 8th day. So 7th day कोई है नॉन हाइपोक्सिक है, सैचुरेशन उसका, तो फर्स्ट पैरामीटर एंड फॉरमोस्ट पैरामीटर इज फीवर. सेकंड पैरामीटर, व्हेन यू टॉक टू देम यू विल फाइंड बोलते बोलते उसको थोड़ी सी ब्रेथलेसनेस लगेगी. दिस इज एन इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट, डोंट नेग्लेक्ट दिस पॉइंट. अगर वो अपना सेंटेंस पूरा नहीं बोल पा रहा है, इट मींस निमोनिया इज सेट इन. थर्ड पॉइंट इज डेवलपमेंट ऑफ कॉफ. वी पीडियाट्रिशियन कैन मेक आउट कि ये चेस्ट से खांसी आ रही है कि गले से खांसी आ रही है. फोर्थ पॉइंट, convey them what was your baseline oxygen saturation. So baseline was 97. सर वो 97 से शुरू होता था, अब वो 96 हो जाता था, फिर वो 98 हो जाता था, ऐसे रोटेट कर रहा है. तो लोवेस्ट इज 96. नाउ पास 24 आवर्स आई एम सीइंग सर वो एक बार 95 भी आ गया था, फिर 97 हो गया था, फिर 95, एक बार 94 भी। तो जो लोएस्ट विंडो है, अब ये समझ लो कि ये निमोनिया की तरफ जा रहा है। सो एज आई टोल्ड यू, मैं 94 से सेचुरेशन की बात कम ही नहीं बात कर रहा हूँ, मैं बात कर रहा हूँ जो एक हमारी गाइडलाइन में नॉर्मल सेचुरेशन है, डेट इज मोर देन 95 और इक्वल टू 95। नाउ फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, फर्स्ट पेशेंट ले हम, where 900 plus saturate 100 plus fever on fifth day. I give them 16 milligram Medrol to 32 milligram. If 100 to 103 very high grade fever with all sort of feature like breathlessness, cough is there, I start with 32 milligram Medrol. 32 milligram Medrol means divide it by 5, so वो Dexona की dose आ जाएगी आप। So you give one dose. Suppose आज रात को 10 बजे मेरे से बात की, मैं I will convey कि तू एक डोज अभी खा ले, because he is not hypoxic. So next day, if possible, he will get an CRP and HRCT. So it was, we started on day 5, now it is day 6. He got his CRP. सर वो डॉक्टर साहब 2 दिन बाद रिपोर्ट आएगी, कोई बात नहीं। HRCT, सर वो HRCT पॉसिबल नहीं है। सो कन्वे हिम कि 36 आवर्स के बाद कन्वे कि 6 मिलीग्राम डेक्सा मैंने जो आपको दी स्टैट, नेक्स्ट मॉर्निंग की डेक्सा, नेक्स्ट इवनिंग की डेक्सा। सो इतना आप टाइम लेके चलो कि इतना टाइम उसको इन्वेस्टिगेट करने में लगेगा। नहीं भी इन्वेस्टिगेट कर पाया तो 2 ग्रुप बन गए, जिसने आपको इन्वेस्टिगेशंस दिए लाके आफ्टर 36 आवर्स, दूसरा ग्रुप बना जो बिल्कुल इन्वेस्टिगेशन करा ही नहीं सकता। After 36 hours of giving this amount of dose, that is 36 milligram of methylprednisolone, patient should not have fever after 36 hours. और फीवर भी हो तो आपका 99 या 98 हो जाना चाहिए। सो फर्स्ट सेट ऑफ पेशेंट हु इज नॉट हाइपोक्सिक बट हैविंग हाई ग्रेड फीवर, तो स्टार्टिंग डोज हुई आपकी 6 मिलीग्राम डेक्सा या 32, नॉट 36, 32 मिलीग्राम ऑफ मिथाइलप्रेडनिसोलोन, 3 डोजेस। देन यू इवेल्युएट कि नेक्स्ट मैंने डोजेस कम करनी है या ज्यादा करनी। सेकेंड ग्रुप that is more common, 99, 98, 99, 100 low grade fever, जिसको आप 7th डे तक ले गए, 8th डे तक ले, you start with 16 milligram of methylprednisolone or 4 milligram of Dexa. Okay, ask him to get test and response to the therapy after 36 hours. After 36 hours, if there is a poor response, then this patient is going to land up in problem. Then these patient either should be increase the dose if you have started with the 16 Medrol, or if patient is actually having breathlessness, having high grade fever 101, 102, despite of good amount of Dexona or Medrol, this patient is actually going to land up in trouble. These patients should be admitted. Third point, after 36 hours, we have got 3 things. One is inflammatory marker, that is CRP, D-dimer and CT scan, and response to your original steroid जो आपने दिया है. Done. Based on this, you escalate or de-escalate. Now imagine on 7th day, you find that his CT scan score is just less than 7. His CRP is less than 10. And he has responded beautifully to your 1 dose, 3 doses of steroid. So give this medication for 5 days and taper it quickly. That is your clinical decision. Whenever convey them on the day 1, anytime your oxygen level if goes down, if you are on 16 milligram Medrol, consume it 32 milligram morning, evening and reach nearby hospital. That should be a standard way. मैं लिखता हूँ कि 4 times आपने डोज लेनी है, and whenever you find oxygen saturation आपकी कम हो रही है, and this is an emergency, नहीं तो वो आपको फोन करता रहेगा, आप तो मिलोगे नहीं दिन में, पीपी पहना होगा या अपने वार्ड में होगे, आपके पीछे पड़ जाएगा। तो आपको पहले दिन ही ये क्लियर कट इंस्ट्रक्शन देनी है, ऑक्सीजन लेवल डाउन जाना, it means this is a medical emergency. So in nutshell, patients who are not hypoxic, the steroid dose depends on the severity of disease, clinical severity of disease, high-grade fever with breathlessness, with cough, low-grade fever without breathlessness, without cough. So you categorize them in two bases and further subcategorize based on the test, based on the response of the steroid which you have given. You can save n number of patients in getting into hypoxemic phase. Second point, that is very important. You start steroid, response comes beautifully within 48 hours. Second problem starts on 9th to 14th day. There's a second surge of pneumonia. 10 to 20% of the patient who are doing absolutely fine. 9th day, fever will start appearing. On steroid, even 99 fever is a very dangerous sign. Omen sign is an omen. It means this patient is going to land up in cytokine storm. Now I forgot to tell, if suppose CRP is more than 40, after say 36 hours, you find that CRP is more than 30, more than 40, but response is quite good. Then you continue with your dose. After 3 days, repeat your CRP. But if your CRP is more than 80 to 90, forget about CT score, CT severity score. This patient is going to land up in ICU next 36 hours. 100%. Only 2 patients were out of exception. Otherwise, 100%, this patient is going to land up in, if actual CRP is due to COVID, not because of some other infection, which you are going to evaluate when you talk to the patient, UTI or something else. So this is about, in nutshell, about the start of steroid, escalation of steroid. Now, the most important and most difficult part is how you taper it and discontinue it. Because especially with advent of black fungus, I'm also scared. Once you find that there is no fever, no breathlessness, and no cough from the chest, from throat, it may persist for around 10 days. For 3 days stability, you start tapering by 50%. So 5 to 7 days is a full dose. Then you start it taper. Don't taper it, say, every 5th day. Taper it every 2nd day and discontinue. 10% of the patient will again start having fever, but again tackle with that fever rather than too much slow tapering.
How many cases of mucormycosis you've already come across on those people on steroid?
मेरा तो एक भी नहीं हुआ. Out of 800, none of my patient developed mucormycosis.
Dr. Shalabh, can we ask?
Sir, I think this is the most wonderful account and the most precious piece of advice which you have given, elaborated in the last 5 minutes, that when to use steroids in the patients who are not hypoxic. So it's very clear when the patient is going high in a hypoxic state, everybody knows that they have to start the steroids, but how to recognize the patient when he's not hypoxic, that is the challenge. When to initiate the steroid, how to save, and how to advise him in absentia when you are not expect, the patient is not able to contact you, that he's starting that the 3 doses, 4 doses, and before he able to contact or get the investigation. So this is the cornerstone of this whole question answer session, because the steroid is probably the most the life-saving medicine in the treatment in the COVID. So another thing is another important thing which you mentioned is about the, and a lot of questions are there about the anticoagulant therapy. Can you, sir, please elaborate on the how to optimize the anticoagulant therapy in the adults as well as the pediatric patients?
So pediatric, they normally don't need it unless they are admitted and they are having MIAC, severe MIAC. So leave aside that. Now we about adult. In adult, if patient is saturation is less than 95, so these patients will require admission or will require some sort of oxygen backup, and you start with enoxaparin 40 once a day. If saturation is less than 90, you start with 40 twice a day. Now, in a given patient where it is a severe disease, which I talked about, high-grade fever more than 101, breathlessness, cough, but there is no hypoxia. Or if you find CRP is around 30, 40 and you're still managing at home, these patients should be given enoxaparin for 10 days, then epibexabin or Xarelto or any medication, any oral anticoagulant for 4 more weeks. So 4 weeks plus 2, so total 6 weeks anticoagulant should be given. Whether you want to continue aspirin, it's your wish. But don't focus on only aspirin. Many patients might be taking aspirin previously also, so you can continue with that, but give your oral and subcutaneous enoxaparin in a severe disease where there was just inflammation, mild inflammation, like CVT score was CT CVT score was less than 10. Fine. And patient response was wonderful. Within 5 days, within 3 days, he became afebrile. Patient never had major cough, never had breathlessness. You need not to give anticoagulants and give it for 6 weeks.
How often do you want to repeat the PT and the APTT?
Sir, we do with by D-dimer. So all depends on the severity. If severity of disease was high, so you do it every third day. In admitted patient, either you do daily or on alternate day. So I'm talking about non-hypoxic but severe disease on OPD basis. You try to do every third to fifth day, depending on the response of the patient.
So much has been talked about the remdesivir, which has become obsolete.
Sir, yeah. So
and
one by one, next 5 minutes, I'll just elaborate what I feel is required.
Right.
One is the inhaled steroid. Inhaled steroid in very severe disease where patient requires very high oxygen. If you try to take out the mask and you try to give inhaled steroid, they collapse. So try to avoid. This is not a Ramban, inhaled steroid. Many people feel that for 5-7 days, you just give inhaled steroid and don't give oral steroid. Oral steroid is the main cornerstone, not the inhaled steroid. Don't try that, because if patient land up in major pneumonia, this is not a very time-tested therapy. So what you can give an adjunct to the oral steroid. Now, in a given patient where only cough is there, nothing is there, definitely inhaled steroid like Budecort, like Foracort, definitely are going to help in this patient. I do prescribe after this landmark study for the inhaled steroid. So my standard prescription is the steroid with tapering, with instruction, with oral anticoagulant or subcutaneous anticoagulant, and with inhaled steroid. And I give it by nebulizer because even the adult patients, they very difficult to make them train unless they were asthmatic by spacer, and it takes lot of time to explain them. They know how to use nebulizer. So by nebulization, I give Budecort and I give this oral steroid. And so rely on oral steroid unless some major study comes that inhaled steroid can replace oral steroid, that I don't know. Now we talk about the tapering. I think we are talking about tapering. Yes, next question, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, just a minute, sir.
Actually,
Injectable versus oral steroids.
Yeah, normally now we talk about little bit serious patient. If a patient whose saturation is 94, 93, डॉक्टर साहब 92, 93, 94 आता है, लेकिन मैं ठीक हूँ, फीवर आपको आपने स्टेरॉइड दिया था, मेरा सेटल हो गया, तो यू कंटिन्यू विथ 32 milligram मेड्रोल मॉर्निंग इवनिंग फॉर नेक्स्ट 3 to 5 days. Once oxygen level becomes settled at 95, you start tapering them. If CRP was high, you can repeat the CRP. Now, after 5 days, when we found that, okay, that 9th to 12th day period is also been taken care of, now you start tapering. Now, I am talking about severe patient who has come with the saturation of 90 and 93. In these patients, best is that whatsoever the steroid is available with him, like 32 milligram Medrol, convey him, consume it immediately. Get an injectable like 80 milligram Medrol or 40 milligram Medrol next 6 hours. Get 1 dose of Medrol, take 40 milligram twice a day. Try to get an oxygen concentrator or oxygen cylinder. This was at the peak when we didn't have beds. Many patients refused to go to hospital. For them, 1 dose of Medrol injectable that can save their life. Especially they can be saved from progressive hypoxemia. In these patients, if possible, I continue with IV steroid for 4 or 5 days. Once your oxygen level is around 94 to 95. And one point I want to make, if you do not neglect hypoxemia, like you catch a patient at 90 saturation, it will take around week to 10 days to get settled. If you catch hold at 94 saturation, next 5 days, 3 to 5 days, he will start maintaining good saturation. This is the timeline. Whenever you catch hold a patient of 85 saturation, next 2 weeks, 80 saturation month, this is the time frame what I have found in the patient from onset of your adequate treatment till recovery.
What about the various investigations that have to be done prior to what we have already given, the steroids and all that, especially regarding about the CT scan and CT scan in adults and in children? And in children.
Now we talk about CT scan. I don't remember in even except 2 patients I prescribed CT scan in pediatric age group. Now CT scan utilization has been best in non-hypoxic patient. Today I found a patient was having 10 liter oxygen. My residents, sir, वो CT तो कराया नहीं हमने. मैंने कहा CT करा के क्या करा लीजिए. Score 18 आएगा, 22 आएगा, 25 आएगा. Already you are giving 125 Medrol morning evening. How you are going to change? In a patient, when उसकी wife non-hypoxic थी, she was admitted. एक example दे रहा हूँ, उससे आपके सारे patients open up हो जाएंगे. A patient who is non-hypoxic, having just low-grade fever. If you find, okay, CT scan is more than 11 score, say 12, 13, 14. It means we started on 16 Medrol. Probably it's better to give 32 Medrol morning, evening for next 2-3 days. Then better to reduce it. At times, low CT scan score, but symptoms are much more than. Whatsoever is the highest, is the worst, should guide your therapy. So there are 4 arms. One is hypoxemia, second is grade of fever, third is inflammatory marker CRP, fourth is the D-dimer, that is inflammatory marker, and fifth is the imaging. Fine. So CT scan in asymptomatic, 46% of asymptomatic patient will have normal CT scan. So don't try to get the CT scan in asymptomatic patient. Now in symptomatic, 13% of the patient within 5 days, if you try to get a CT scan, they won't show actual severity. Best time is the 7th day. In a patient where there is a persistence of symptom, where you need to titrate your steroid dose. In a low risk patient with low grade fever, with inflammatory marker normal, if CT scan comes more than 12, so the worst thing here is the just CT scan. Be little bit extra cautious. Don't try to treat CT scan alone. But if you're giving 8 milligram Medrol, just escalate to 16 milligram twice a day. Okay. Now, in a patient who's having high grade fever, but CT scan score is just 4, inflammatory marker is 30, 40. It means patient is developing pneumonia. 5 of my patient, whole family started celebrating that CT scan G4 आया, ये तो pneumonia ही नहीं है. I have to convey to them folded hand कि ये start हुआ है. And not all, 3 out of them landed in cytokine storm within 3 days in hospital with 50 liter of oxygen. And their CT scan score was normal on 5th day, was just 3, 4, 5. Out of 4 arms and ammunition, hypoxemia, clinical fever, inflammatory marker, and radiology, whatsoever worst thing you notice, you try to analyze. But in none of my patients, I had surprise that they didn't had clinical feature, but worse CRP or CT scan. All of them had some or other respiratory or other clinical sign and symptom. Somehow we were not able to take that clinical sign and symptom because some of the patients were taking minuscule dose of steroid and they were not manifesting with the fever. So these things do happen when we don't spend time with the patient. Explore what they are getting. Then you will come to know the whole story.
So the findings of CT scan have to be taken with a pinch of salt. They have to be taken with a pinch of salt, and not every case is going to have a deterioration, as you already said. Now, there was a big controversy regarding CT scan with one of the very top persons in the country told about that CT scan probably may be giving rise to cancer and all that. What's your take on that?
Sir, if patient survives, only then cancer is going to happen. Fine. So that what is happening, instead of the ICMR highest authority, rather than teaching and training us, they are training not through IMA, they are training us through the medias and Aaj Tak and these televisions. So that is creating confusion. If they want to approach us, कि भाई CT scan मत कराओ ज़्यादा, and they are right that the people are getting right and left CT scan. Fine, so that is wrong. If they try to convey us through IMA, through particular medical sources, that is always better. Now, we are opposing through the same media. They are conveying through the same media, and public is watching us. So people were initially, were not given adequate steroid. Now you try to give them steroid, they are scared of black fungus. So things are very difficult because when social media and actual media pitch in, and it's our responsibility, it is the AIMS doctor responsibility that they should approach through ICMR, they should approach through IMA, rather than directly approaching to media and commenting on a modality which is useful in some of the selected patient, rather than just preaching and teaching through social media.
Sir, in the chat box, sir, there are two very common queries. What is the current status of Remdesivir and plasma therapy?
लास्ट टाइम सर प्लाज्मा थेरेपी तो लास्ट टाइम भी मैंने बहुत अपोज करता था हमारे क्लिनिशियन को, वो टाइम पास थेरेपी होती थी. एंड टाइम पास मींस क्लिनिशियन टाइम पास करता था. कोई सीरियस पेशेंट है उसको प्लाज्मा देके कि जिससे 2-3 दिन बिजी रहे अटेंडेंट और उसको लगे, और कुछ हॉस्पिटल्स ने इसको हाइप्ड अप कर दिया था कि प्लाज्मा हमारे यहाँ मिलता है जैसे बहुत बड़ी चीज मिलती है. एंड वी नो दैट वन ऑफ द हेल्थ मिनिस्टर गॉट प्लाज्मा थेरेपी शिफ्टेड टू सम अदर हॉस्पिटल फॉर प्लाज्मा. So ये सब शोशा से everything get misguided. I am talking about science. When we talk about science, first of all talk about Remdesivir. Remdesivir, there was a lot of confusion. WHO, ICMR, इन्होंने भी बहुत confusion create किया है among people. There was a time when we used to give Remdesivir on day 2, day 3 in a very highly predisposed patient who is obese and who is having high grade fever on 2nd, 3rd day. We found that we couldn't prevent late cytokine storm if it has bound to happen. One. Secondly, this time we didn't have choice of Remdesivir at all. In my 800 patient, we didn't find any difference in the result. So Remdesivir in a given patient who is going to have saturation of 94, 93 with more than 50% chest infiltrate, if possible, if available, give it at this time. Otherwise, it doesn't changes the management plan, management protocol and outcome. This is very clear. If they take out the Remdesivir out of clinical settings, it's fine. Now we talk about plasma. They have delayed this thing, means by claiming that now we are taking away the plasma. No, plasma, what the plasma contains? Plasma contains antibodies. 90% of the patient do develop antibodies on 7th day. These antibodies, they will work by preventing that virus to enter the cell. So the virus has got RBD, receptor binding domain. In receptor binding domain, there is a moiety. When it approaches ACE2, it opens up. And that antigen is exposed to the plasma. At this time, your antibody attaches to the RBD, that is moiety. Then this virus is not going to attach ACE2. So it has got a preventive role. That's why the game changer may be your antibodies, that is monoclonal antibodies In a highly predisposed patient, if we take antibodies within 3 to 5 days of the disease onset, not pneumonia onset should be there. Once pneumonia onset is there, then it is of no use. Once pneumonia is not set in, say within 3 days, it may be able to save you 70% from hospitalization. One. But I'm little bit susceptible because I'm not very happy because now we have got mutant strain and the antibodies has been developed for the previous strain. So how much this is going to work in our scenario with 617, I don't know. But presently, this is a fashionable thing in the West that people go to emergency or on OPD, take an antibody of 1200 milligram and come back within 3 days of the disease onset with highly predisposed settings like obesity, diabetes, and so on. Now somebody is asking that, what about these new drug, Verapin and 2G and all that? I've used in very few of the patients, just 1 or 2 patients. Very difficult, if I say presently, that they are going to be useful or they are useless drugs. I think time will tell whether they are going to be useful. Any drug regarding Verapin, always remember this is also a sort of cytokine. If patient pneumonia is already set in, like 7th or 8th day onward, patient is hypoxic, it may increase your cytokines, it may increase the leakiness of the capillaries, it may exaggerate your pneumonia. So be careful in prescribing all these new drugs. Regarding 2G, DG2, means I feel that time will tell actually this is going to be useful or not. It looks like to me like an probiotic or something like that. It is a useless thing, you can take it, but I'm probably not at the best time I should claim all these things, because actually I don't know how much is the science behind it, how much is the fiction behind it, and so probably time will tell.
That is why they are calling this drug as cheating the cheaters. Cheating the cheaters, that is the name coin for these particular
lot of questions in the chat box regarding 2DG. Lot of questions.
सर डॉक्टर अमित ने पूछा है, एंड डॉक्टर अमित को अगर आप अनम्यूट कर दो, he has got the maximal use of bevacizumab and these are the new, अब I think डॉक्टर अमित को अगर आप अनम्यूट कर दो, उनका मेरे से ज्यादा एक्सपीरियंस है ड्रग्स के लिए। डॉक्टर अमित उपाध्याय, सॉरी, जो ना मेरठ वाले। सो अब मैं बात करता हूँ इनकी ड्रग्स की, टॉसिलिजुमैब मीन जुमैब्स की। These are actually drugs, and these are actual drugs. Is it drugs of desperation? You start steroid. 90% of the patient, you start steroid at a particular window, they recover, whether it's hypoxic or non-hypoxic. In 10% patients, it takes time, around 6-7 days. In many of the patients, within 72 hours, the response will start coming. But in 1% of the patient, when patient is not showing adequate response and you find that IL-6 is more than 80, CRP is more than 80, 90, and patient is suddenly deteriorating overnight. In this subclass of the patient, you may start thinking that tocilizumab. We know that tocilizumab is not available, so you think of itolizumab, or you think of Servicept. I'm not pronouncing it right. Anyway, then comes your bevacizumab, and then comes your bersatinib, that is JAK inhibitors, or tofazam. So just 3-4 sentences, I would like to finish the utility of them. If patient is deteriorating within 24 hours and mounting the interleukins and cytokines to the extent of more than 70 to 90, you can use itolizumab in some subset of the patient. All these are double S4. After 48 hours, you will find that आपका गलत था decision and patient is totally immunoparalyzed. Previously, patient was fighting with the disease. Now he's become hopeless. Whether hopeless due to drug or due to disease, very difficult to define. Very limited studies, but individually people can say मैंने दिया था सर 2 को फायदा हुआ, मैंने दिया था 4 को फायदा हुआ, but नुकसान भी बहुत होता है. Second, one drug I would like to say, baricitinib, that is JAK inhibitor. These are the drugs I have got some experience in a given patient, where you find that you are giving high dose steroid, patient is not responding. So you want to reduce the steroid. These are some steroid sparing drugs. So you can start, because now cheap baricitinib and tofa is available. You can start 4 milligram once a day for 14 days. With remdesivir, studies have shown that if a patient has been given remdesivir and baricitinib, probably it was steroid sparing and helped the patient. But these all are based on just 1 or 2 studies. This is covidology is actually experiments done by scientists, done by we clinicians on ourselves, and we are learning. Till date, only 2 drugs matter: adequate dose of steroid and anticoagulant. Dr. Amit, you want to say something?
Yes, sir. So first of all, about the drug which you mentioned last, baricitinib, JAK1 and 2 inhibitors, and its co-gene tofacitinib. Tofacitinib is more readily available, even cheaper than baricitinib, but it has to be given twice a day. Baricitinib is only once a day. These are wonderful drugs for moderate disease, and they should be added upon if you are in the range where Dr. Dhiren has mentioned that we are to 32 milligram or maybe even 40 milligram 3 times a day, and still we are requiring oxygen. So in moderate disease, we should add upon, especially in the era when beds were not available, when oxygen beds were not available. So we saved a lot of admissions by using these 2 drugs. And in patients who were on very high oxygen therapy or even BiPAP therapy, because I, like Dr. Dhiren, following him, I jumped into adult covidology and started treating sick patients with COVID disease in my hospital. And we managed quite a few patients, and more scientifically than what adult physicians were treating. And we found a lot of benefit with use of this drug. So
we have adult physicians also here in the audience.
मेरे हॉस्पिटल से नहीं होगा कोई, वो कोई नहीं आता इसमें.
Actually, every pediatrician is also looking after the adult COVID.
Because and this has broken the barriers. In fact, this disease has broken the barriers.
Sir, adult physician थे सर बहुत busy होते हैं, वो time नहीं होता उनके पास. And ऐसा नहीं है कि adult physician बिल्कुल sensitive नहीं होते, but I am talking about most of the adult physician as compared to pediatrician थोड़े से hyper होते हैं patient के लिए. तो वही चीज उनकी एडल्ट मेडिसिन में भी चली जाती है. अगर हम सुबह मेडिसिन देते हैं तो हमें रात को लगता है कि वो ठीक हो गया कि नहीं, कहीं लैंड तो नहीं कर गया. सो जो ये एटीट्यूड है, ये मॉनिटरिंग पार्ट एडल्ट में ये इजीली नहीं होता. उनके पेशेंट इतनी जल्दी ना डाउन जाते हैं ना इंप्रूव होते हैं. सो प्रोबब्ली
और एक बहुत बड़ा डिफरेंस मैंने देखा सर, हम बच्चों के साथ जो बात करते हैं ना, वो बड़ा अलग होता है. हम अपने पेशेंट्स, हमारे यहाँ स्मॉल किड्स, एंड वी हैव टू गेन देयर अटेंशन, एंड सेम इज वी डू विद एडल्ट पेशेंट्स आल्सो, बिकॉज़ दैट इज आवर नेचर टू टॉक टू आवर पेशेंट्स. And
Dr. Amit
boosts a lot of morale of such patients. And वो मतलब हॉस्पिटल में नर्सेस कहती थी कि सर आप राउंड लेके जाते हो ना, सारे पेशेंट्स एकदम हंसने लग जाते हैं और बहुत अच्छा फील करते हैं उसके बाद से. So ये मुझे लगता है एट्रीब्यूट ऑफ अ पीडियाट्रिशियन रादर देन एडल्ट फिजिशियन.
झांसी में तो हर शिफ्ट के अंदर में कोविड वार्ड में पीडियाट्रिशियन रहता है. हर एक शिफ्ट में there's one pediatrician along with an anesthetist and a physician. So the pediatricians are learning a lot of adult.
चलो
एक क्वेश्चन सर, I just wanted to
काफी सारे क्वेश्चन है. आराम
डॉक्टर धीरेन्द्र,
मैं आपके लिए मैं एक चीज कहना चाहूंगा कि जिसको मॉडरेट इलनेस है which is progressing to severe, that is requiring BiPAP की तरफ अगर हमें लग रहा है कि वो प्रोसीड कर रहा है, he is requiring almost 10 liters or so oxygen and high CRP is there. In that cases we have used bevacizumab, which is anti-VEGF monoclonal antibody, that with a reasonable efficacy. Almost in 10 patients we have used in the dose of 7.5 milligram per kg to be infused over 4 hours. And it's not a trial, but at least all such moderate to severe cases we were able to save. So it was not only isolated therapy. There was all cocktail of other drugs were being used, remdesivir, steroids.
डॉक्टर अमित ये 100 मिलीग्राम की आ रही है आजकल, 400 वाली
400 वाली अवेलेबल है सर, रिलायंस की अवेलेबल है बहुत अच्छे से।
अच्छा, मिली नहीं मेरे को, कल मैं ढूंढ रहा था। अच्छा डॉक्टर शलभ, कई सारे पेशेंट, कई सारे वो है कॉमन क्वेश्चंस हैं, बोलिए।
Yeah, sir, that's one question I wanted to ask you as the key message you gave about the steroids. The most fearsome thing in the COVID is the cytokine storm. Cytokine storm, what can you give this clear-cut message to the audience how they can preempt the cytokine storm, that this patient is going to have it and he can prevent it, and if it has it,
high grade fever, extreme weakness, high grade fever, extreme weakness, patient may be little bit breathless, and CRP is mounting beyond 50, other than hypoxemia. मैं hypoxemia की बात ही नहीं कर रहा हूं. If these features are there, invariably patient is going to land up in major cytokine storm, and without exception जो मेरा experience है. And at this time patient may not feel breathless also. So many of the patient को मेरे को folded hand से बोलना पड़ा है, please जाके admit हो एक hospital में जिसमें ICU backup हो. तो इनमें बिना ICU backup के भी नहीं आपको भेजना. और सारे पेशेंट्स में लिम्फोपीनिया था, लिम्फोसाइट काउंट लेस देन 10%. बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन है सर, ले लो फटाफट. एक है मिथाइल प्रेडनिसोलोन प्लस डेक्सा.
सर मेथिलीन ब्लू के ऊपर काफी क्वेश्चंस हैं, मेथिलीन ब्लू का यूजेज.
सर ये बड़ी वेस्ट ऑफ टाइम है, मतलब मेरे को लगता है आइवरमेक्टिन, मेथिलीन ब्लू, DG2 इन सब के बारे में एक प्रैक्टिकल वाले ले लो जिससे एक्चुअल में हम फायदा हो.
डॉक्टर धीरेन्द्र, एक्चुअली क्या एक जनरल इंप्रेशन ये है कि आज का जो आपका प्रेजेंटेशन है ना, दिस इज बिल्कुल क्लिनिकल ओरिएंटेड है, जो कि बिल्कुल हम लोग उसी पे रहे. इसमें हम लोगों ने बहुत ज्यादा लेवल्स और एवरीथिंग इन्वेस्टिगेशन की बात रिलेटिवली कम करी, एंड इट वाज लाइक सम योर की एक्सपीरियंस क्लिनिशियन वार्ड में अपने रेजिडेंट्स को पढ़ा रहा है, उस तरह से वी रियली एंजॉयड अ लॉट. लेकिन अब जो है सिर्फ आपके हम लोग कुछ रैपिड फायर क्वेश्चंस हैं, वी वांट टू आंसर इन वेरी शॉर्ट, मे बी 1 or 2 लाइन. तो
सर आराम से, बिल्कुल.
हाँ, नहीं बस हमारे पास समय भी हमें देखना पड़ रहा है कि लोग कम, अभी तक हम लोगों की मैक्सिमम अटेंडेंस, थैंक्स टू यू 325 पार्टिसिपेंट्स, हम लोगों के मैक्सिमम अटेंडेंस आज रही और बहुत देर तक रही वो, तो दैट्स बिकॉज ऑफ यू ओनली. सो फर्स्ट थिंग, एक क्वेश्चन इंपॉर्टेंट था, डेक्सामेथासोन और मेथिलप्रेडनिसोलोन.
Sir, just whatsoever is available. If patient is diabetic, avoid Dexa. Methylprednisolone as a first choice, and Dexa is the second choice. Some people say because of lung penetration, methylprednisolone work better. But whatsoever is available. This time we were beggars, were not choosers. But in a patient who is diabetic, avoid Dexa.
Can we change while tapering from methylprednisolone to Dexa or prednisolone?
Yes, sir. You can change it.
This tapering, as you earlier told, कि 5 दिन में ये होना है. अगर इसको prolonged tapering की जाएगी तो बच्चों में क्या अंतर पड़ेगा?
सर बच्चों में तो नहीं, एडल्ट की बात करें. बच्चों में तो नॉर्मली 5 दिन के बाद जरूरत नहीं पड़ती. अब 5 के बाद आप एडोलोसेंट है तो आप नेक्स्ट 2 वीक्स में, और बच्चों में कोई ये सीवियर साइड इफेक्ट्स भी नहीं होते इसके स्टेरॉइड के. बट इन एडल्ट, इफ पेशेंट हैड हाइपोक्सीमिया, नॉर्मली पीपल डू स्लो टेपरिंग. इफ पेशेंट हैड नो हाइपोक्सीमिया, माइल्डर डिजीज, यू डू फास्ट टेपरिंग. सो यूज कॉमन सेंस, डोंट ट्राई टू abruptly taper them. Do little bit slow tapering. Slow tapering means every 3rd day tapering. Fast tapering means every 50% reduction in every 2nd day, and you start tapering after 7 days. So I mean to say, depending कि किस severity के लिए आपने शुरू किया, उसके हिसाब से common sense use करके जब भी आप टेपर करो तो पिछले 24 घंटे में कोई फीवर या हाइपोक्सीमिया नहीं होना चाहिए.
Okay. अब बच्चे की बात करें, एडोलेसेंट की बात करें, अगर एक एडोलेसेंट में फीवर ठीक हो गया लेकिन अगेन आफ्टर 3 days विदाउट एनी अदर इफेक्ट, विदाउट नॉर्मल इन्वेस्टिगेशन, इफ व्हाट इज इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ ओनली फीवर आफ्टर 3 or 4 days ऑफ कन्वलेसेंस?
सर इसका आंसर मैं भी ढूंढ रहा हूँ, मेरे को भी नहीं मिला।
ओके ओके, नो प्रॉब्लम। सर ये बताएं, विच वन वुड यू प्रीफर, ए सिंपल पल्स ऑक्स मॉनिटरिंग और 5 minutes वॉक पल्स ऑक्स मॉनिटरिंग?
सर पिछले साल मैंने 5 मिनट वॉक भी किया था। मैंने बहुत बार देखा 5 मिनट वॉक के बाद लोगों की सैचुरेशन बढ़ जाती थी, 80% की इंक्रीज हो जाती थी रेदर देन डिक्रीजिंग। So I abandoned that. That is my personal practice. So I normally do now simple monitoring, because इस बार सीवियर केसेस बहुत ज्यादा आए हैं। पिछली बार बहुत माइल्ड थे, बट इस बार माइल्ड टू मॉडरेट की तरफ ज्यादा आए थे। तो आपको वॉकिंग, वैसे भी किसी की 95 सैचुरेशन है, उसमें वॉक करा के क्या करोगे आप? ठीक है ना? तो कहने का मतलब है, नाउ माय एम्फेसिस इज दैट वेरी क्लोज मॉनिटरिंग विद द वेव फॉर्म एनालिसिस ऑल्सो, जो पल्स ऑक्सीमीटर का है उसका वेव फॉर्म। आज मॉर्निंग में मैं एक पेशेंट को एडमिट कराना पड़ गया, 91 सैचुरेशन। जब उसको इमरजेंसी में जाके देखा तो 99 था, अच्छे पल्स ऑक्स थे, वो चाइनीज पल्स ऑक्स था, उसका 90 सैचुरेशन आ रहा था। मैंने पल्स ऑक्सीमीटर लगाया तो मेरा भी 91 आ रहा था। तो उसको,
ठीक है, ये भी मिलता
तो बी वेरी केयरफुल।
Okay, enoxaparin indication, it should it be high D dimer or it from some clinical parameter?
नहीं सर, क्लिनिकल ए सीवियर डिजीज जो मैंने डिफाइन किया, हाई ग्रेड फीवर जिसको चल रहा है, उसमें आपको स्टेरॉइड थोड़े हाई डोज पे शुरू करने पड़े हैं। बेटर यू स्टार्ट विद एनॉक्सीपेरिन वंस अ डे। In any hypoxic patient, you start a severely hypoxic patient twice a day, and then you titrate with the D-dimer. If D-dimer is more than 10 times, like more than 2000, this genuine D-dimer. Problem with the D-dimer is, in 90% of the patient, it's not a genuine D-dimer. People take sample, keep it not in the refrigerator, but home collection वाला आता है, लेके जाता है, 4 घंटे बाद वो डिपॉजिट करता है, और एबनॉर्मली हाई IL-6 और डी डायमर इतना कॉमन है कि वो डिजीज सीवियरिटी से मैच ही नहीं करता है। सो बी वेरी केयरफुल इन इंटरप्रेटिंग द डी डायमर, अदरवाइज डी डायमर से आप डोज को ऊपर और नीचे करते हैं। नॉर्मली more than 2000 genuine D dimer gives an indication that this patient can have major problem anytime, so you escalate your dose.
एक बहुत स्पेसिफिक सवाल है कि आपने MIS के कितने पेशेंट गंगाराम में एडमिट किए हैं इस कोविड दौरान?
इस वाले में?
हाँ,
इस वाले में मुश्किल से 4 भी नहीं किए।
4 भी नहीं किए। That means it is not as that common as it is hyped, that you already discussed. Second thing, about mucormycosis, what percentage is there in diabetic, or of course it's in diabetic with steroid treated, तो इसका क्या इंसिडेंस चल रहा है?
सर बड़ा मुश्किल है। ये कहूंगा कि अगर 40 करोड़ को इस पर ये हुआ, क्या कहते हो आप, कोविड हुआ, ठीक है, उसमें से 1 करोड़।
What is your point of assumption? 40 करोड़
सर इस बार आप अपने आसपास, घर के आसपास देख लो। अभी हमारे बता रहा था कि नॉर्थ इंडिया IAP के 70 मेंबर्स थे, 70 मेंबर्स को कल ही एनालाइज किया, अराउंड 35 से ऊपर सबको कोविड हो गया। ठीक है,
एटलीस्ट वन इन ईच फैमिली।
तो आप मान के चलो कि आपके एक फैमिली में अंदर चला गया तो एक को नहीं छोड़ा, ये सबको अफेक्ट किया है। सो 1/3 ऑफ इंडियन पॉपुलेशन हैज बीन अफेक्टेड बाय कोविड। इतना तो एज्यूम करके चलो, जब पिछली बार 50% सीरो पॉजिटिविटी थी, तो इस बार तो मेरे ख्याल से 70% आएगी। मैं क्लिनिकल कोविड की बात कर रहा हूँ। 40 करोड़ में 1 करोड़ को भी अगर स्टेरॉइड मिले, ठीक है, उसमें से 5000 आपको वो मिली है। आज की जो फिगर है ना 5500, ये जो म्यूकरमाइकोसिस की, तो आप 5000 आउट ऑफ 1 करोड़ लगा लो, रेशियो कितनी है। तो मेरे से कोई पेशेंट बोलता है, मैंने कहा यार तुम बचोगे तब तो तुम्हें क्यों म्यूकर वूकर होगा, तुम बचोगे ही नहीं निमोनिया से तो कहाँ से म्यूकर हो जाएगा।
बिल्कुल सही बात। एंड स्टिल क्या आप टेक होम मैसेज देते हो अपने पेशेंट को म्यूकरमाइकोसिस से प्रिवेंट करने के लिए?
सर प्रिवेंशन तो कुछ नहीं, मैं भी थोड़ा डरता हूँ अंदर से, टेल मी वेरी फ्रेंकली। अभी ये नई चीज ही आई है और उसके पेशेंट्स मैंने देखे हैं म्यूकर में। अभी ये नई चीज नहीं है मेरे लिए, मैं पिछले 15 साल से अराउंड 15 पेशेंट म्यूकर के देख चुका हूँ पोस्ट दिस वन डेंगी। पोस्ट डेंगी इससे खराब बीमारी कुछ नहीं होती, तड़पा के मारती है। ये कैसे घुसती है अंदर, मतलब आई कैन नॉट सी दैट पेशेंट विद म्यूकर माइकोसिस, दिस इज अ वेरी बैड थिंग। प्रिवेंशन मेरे को लगता है कि जो हमारा वो था टेपरिंग प्लान है, थोड़ा सा और फास्ट होना चाहिए। दैट इंक्लूड्स माय चेंज इन प्रैक्टिस आल्सो वन। सेकेंडली किसी का फीवर वापस आएगा तो देख लेंगे, सो थोड़ा सा उसको मैंने अपना प्रैक्टिस प्लान भी चेंज किया वन। सेकेंड केवल स्टेरॉइड से नहीं होता सर, ये डायबिटीज की
डायबिटीज
पुअर कंट्रोल से होता है। सो इस सीजन में मैं थोड़ा सा डायबिटोलॉजिस्ट भी बन गया हूँ, एडल्ट डायबिटोलॉजिस्ट।
स्टेरॉइड प्लस डायबिटीज।
सो हाँ, तो डायबिटीज को बहुत अच्छे ढंग से कंट्रोल करो। मींस आप मेरे से कभी, मेरे को ये याद नहीं नाम रहते थे, गेल्वस मैड एंड एमरेल एंड नोवोपेन कैसे यूज करना है। सो इफ यू आर प्रिस्क्राइबिंग स्टेरॉइड, so my humble request to everybody, just be very strict in sugar control.
सो शुगर कंट्रोल के लिए आपका एक्सेप्टेबल लेवल कितना होना चाहिए?
सर हाँ, मैं फास्टिंग ये पोस्ट प्रेंडियल शुगर आफ्टर 2 hours it should not be more than 135 to 140. Random sugar should not be more than 200 and fasting sugar should not be more than 100 to 120. मीन्स ये इसको, ये आपके स्ट्रिक्ट वो है नॉर्म्स है, इसके बेसिस पे आप उसको मैनेज करते हो। लैंक्टस देते हो शाम को, जो नेक्स्ट डे का फास्टिंग कंट्रोल करेगा। गैल्वस मेट जो है आपका कॉम्बिनेशन है ग्लिना पेप्टाइड और इसका जो है ओरल हाइपोग्लाइसीमिक का, 1 टेबलेट मॉर्निंग 1 टेबलेट इवनिंग। ये बड़ी बेनाइन सी ड्रग है, कभी हाइपो नहीं होने देगी। ये तो आपको स्टार्ट कर ही देना चाहिए। 1 विद ब्रेकफास्ट एंड 1 विद डिनर। ड्यूरिंग डिनर 1 रोटी खाई, उसके बाद 1 टेबलेट खा ली, साइड इफेक्ट्स बड़े कम होते हैं। ये प्रैक्टिकल टिप्स दे रहा हूँ पीडियाट्रिशियंस को, मैंने भी ऐसे ही सीखा है। मेरी वाइफ को थोड़ा अच्छा आता है डायबिटीज वाला, तो वो बताती है मेरे को, एंड दैट एक्चुअली वर्क। सो एंड सेकेंडली नोवोपेन इंसुलिन 3, 5, 8, 10। 150 to 200 आपकी शुगर है तो 3 यूनिट दे दो, 200 to 250 है तो 5 यूनिट दे दो। आप उसका बेनिफिट ये है, खाना खाने के बाद भी 5-10 मिनट बाद भी आप लगा सकते हो। सो दैट इज द ब्यूटी ऑफ दिस
या
डॉक्टर
ओके।
धीरेन, डॉक्टर
एक जस्ट
सवाल था, आपके जितने ओपीडी पेशेंट हैं, आप में किसी को भी म्यूकर हुआ क्या?
नहीं सर।
और क्या
Okay.
म्यूकर ओपीडी पेशेंट में रिपोर्टेड है? दे ऑल आर हॉस्पिटलाइज्ड पेशेंट, दोज हु हैव डेवलप्ड और दे हैव डेवलप्ड आउटसाइड हॉस्पिटल आल्सो?
सर मैं अभी पढ़ रहा था कुछ कि कुछ लोगों को घर से म्यूकर हुआ है, और मैं ये देख रहा था जो गंगाराम में अराउंड 60 पेशेंट्स थे, उनमें से मेरे ख्याल से गंगाराम के शायद 5 ही थे, सारे के सारे बाहर से आए हुए थे। सो कितना ये ऑक्सीजन का भी चल रही है स्टोरी कि ये जो इंडस्ट्रियल ऑक्सीजन मिल गई है, और ये दिस डजंट होल्ड ट्रू।
मैं आपसे एक चीज और पूछनी थी, आपके आईसीयू में तो प्रॉपर सर्वेलेंस होता है क्या? यहाँ आपके आईसीयू में कोई म्यूकर के स्पोर्स कभी डिटेक्ट हुए हाल फिलहाल में? वहाँ की
नहीं सर, ऐसा तो नहीं हुआ।
ओके, आवर नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इम्पोर्टेंट, वुड यू किस पे आप जाओगे? N95 रीयूज करवाने आप स्टिल रिकमेंड करोगे या डेली?
नहीं सर, नहीं सर, देखो अपनी
Daily new.
प्रोटेक्शन पे हमें पैसे खर्च करनी चाहिए।
डेली न्यू
एंड
N95?
बिल्कुल सर, मैं तो
बिल्कुल।
आपको बताया, मैंने आपको फोटो
हम्म।
दिखाई, वो 1.25 लाख का है, मैंने खरीदा अपने लिए।
हम्म।
आप एक बार
कितना-
एडमिट हो गए तो 3 लाख तो आपके ऐसे ही गए कि नहीं गए एडमिशन में, और 15 दिन की प्रैक्टिस आपकी गई, काउंट कर लो आप। और
डॉक्टर
लाइफ गई
धीरेन,
तो कोई भरोसा नहीं।
कितनी बार रीयूज हो सकता है ये वाला जो आपने लिया है 1.2?
ये सर ये जो फेस वो है, ये मैंने 2 परचेज किए, ऑल्टरनेट डे यूज करता हूँ मैं। ये तो आपका 1 साल चल जाता है, और इसकी जो वो है फिल्टर है 1 ईयर लाइफ है, तो एवरी ईयर अराउंड 10-15,000।
कौन सी कंपनी का है?
ये 3M का भी एक आता है, 3M का एंटी पोल्यूशन मास्क, वो about it is about 5,000 or 6,000.
I think we have endless questions, and I'll
Endless
request
questions. Just one or two questions, sir.
एक संडे को ग्वालियर में भी है, वहां भी आ जाना। एक है सेंट्रल IAP का है।
Okay. अच्छा, इसका कोई फायदा देखा गया? 3% नॉर्मल सेलाइन डेली इंस्टिलेशन
किसमें सर?
nasal instillation of 3% normal saline in good recovery. You say ये
नहीं
साथ
नहीं
में
नहीं सर ये सब को सिम्टोमेटिक रिलीफ के लिए है, बट कोविड को स्टीम से लेके बीटाडीन से लेके कोई चीज भगा सकता तो बात ही क्या थी।
हाँ सही बात
Right.
बिल्कुल सही।
So,
तो हम काफी कुछ हम लोगों ने बात कर लिया और बिल्कुल
Dr. Sethi
परफेक्ट
sir,
हम
I
लोग
request
time
you to
पे-
please sum up the talk, sir.
डॉक्टर श्रीवास्तव को बहुत मजा आ रहा था सब क्वेश्चंस पूछने के लिए, उन्होंने सब क्वेश्चंस पूछ डाले। और डॉक्टर गुप्ता तो खैर नॉलेजेबल है ही, वो तो सभी करेंगे, 1 घंटा भी और बैठ सकते हैं
Yes,
अगर
sir.
आपके पास
But sir,
टाइम
we are bound by the time constraint and we are all exceeded the time by 30 minutes. I request you, sir, to please sum up and please
Yeah.
summarize.
So it was an absolute pleasure, Dr. Gupta, to listen to you, to the Deliberations, scintillating program, spectacular program, a lot of knowledge, and you poured all your knowledge to us, all clinical knowledge that you've given to us is going to be highly benefited by it. And because of that, may I now request all of you to please, I cannot ask you to give a standing ovation, at least give a round of big
Sir.
applause. Round of big
Sir,
applause
thank
to
you.
Dr. Gupta for spending so much of time to be with us and guiding us and getting us into our neurons, all the things of COVID, which have